Okay, that's better. Okay, much better. So, for me, it was Obamacare. Okay, when that law, when it was pushed through, I was actually in front of the computer. It was the March 10th, 2010. I said, I can't believe this. The first time I'd ever called my congressman, it was Jane Harman at the time, calling her office and saying, I want her to vote no on this. It was just unthinkable to me that we would see the government passing a law requiring people to get health insurance, such a massive intrusion of the state into our private lives. And I've studied this issue. The more government intervenes into healthcare, the worse it gets, and it's such a sensitive issue. This was just unthinkable to me. I called her and said, you need to vote against this. And then the staffer says, she's voting for it, so tough. Well, I mean, she wasn't that rude, but she's voting for it. She then wrote like a full editorial in the Easy Reader. I couldn't believe this. And then I'm watching it on the floor of the House. So the House passes their bill. It was like 216 to 212, something like that. And then it went over to the Senate with a whole bunch of buyouts and pork, and a bunch of we're seeing sausage making at its worst in the legislature. Then it goes back to the House. I saw the videos of people screaming and yelling. People were trying to block the White House, the Congress, to prevent people from doing this, and it passed. And I was furious. I wrote a letter to the Daily Breeze, and I said, I am outraged that she did this. All the major components of this program won't come into play until 2013, after the presidential election. I says, I want Jane Harman fired. And Pete Kesterson was in the primary running against her that I knew about, so I said, I want him to be the next. He actually was the president of the Beach Cities Republicans at the time.
Okay.
Pete Kesterson.
Were you a member at that time?
No, I was not. I didn't really know anything about it. And that's when my letter was printed the next day. At the time, I was a substitute teacher in Hermosa Beach, and one of the teachers said, Arthur, you were in the news today.
Oh, really?
Wow. My dad actually even called me before that, and my dad's like, Arthur, good job, you were in the newspaper today. I was like, I was? I don't get the newspaper regularly. I just don't. And so that I looked at it and said, holy crap, there I am. They actually printed my letter. And that was a really inspiring moment for me. I've always had like a political mind. I've loved political history. I've loved politics. If you want to call me a wonk, that's fine. It was 2001. I'm at UC Irvine, and when the LA Times, yes, the LA Times, they had printed what the new districts would look like for the congressional seats for the census in 2002. I actually cut it out and put it on my wall.
Really?
Because it's just fascinating to me. This subject is very compelling.
Why?
I just love it. This is something that really resonates with me. Seeing the process, caring about conservative values, seeing them developed and enact. I mean, even before that, in the '92 elections, I was paying attention. I saw the debates with Bush, Clinton, and Ross Perot.
Now, how old are you?
36.
Okay, so you were young.
You can print it if you want. You can tell the whole world. Yeah, I was. But political history especially has always fascinated me. I love looking at the political cartoons in American history books. History, politics, all, and fighting for, reading about conservative values is just really compelling for me. I just love doing it. It's just like breathing for me. So, and becoming more of an activist, getting involved in the political process. This was Obamacare that made it happen for me. Beyond outraged. I didn't have a big window on how to make things happen. I just said, I'm voting for Kesterson, and then, he didn't make it into the primary. It was Maddie Fine, and I voted for her. The 2010 was a big year. I remember going to Tea Party rallies. I started showing up and saying, we got to stop this. We need to really step up and put an end to this abusive nonsense.
This was here in Southern California?
Yes, it is. I live in Torrance. The Torrance Tea Party used to meet on the corner of Madrona and Torrance Boulevard on the green grass in front of the Plunge. And that's where I was. I was there at a Tea Party rally. I mean, there was just rampant outrage about what was happening. And then it was a really just thrilling experience that election year to see the map of the country, the congressional seats all mapped out, and there was like big sections of blue, and then it was almost entirely red, except for California. Oh, that's another story. But it was just so fascinating to me. I was a sub working a long-term assignment at Lawndale High School, and I put up the map because I actually took a government class. I was covering for a lady named Kathy Dragoni. She had 2 sections of government, 3 sections of world history with sophomores. And this is just like, this is what it's about for me, you know. Politics, government, history, rolling it all together, and I was able to talk about this. It was a very compelling time. I was so happy to see these victories. There was like a sense of rekindling that I can be involved in the political process and start making a difference again. So that was really cool for me. I had a credential. Being a teacher wasn't working out the way I wanted to. I had a great full-time assignment at Port of Los Angeles High School, but I was always drawn to politics again. I was always drawn to congressional history, congressional races. These are the things that I was always compelled to. Teaching the subjects was not fulfilling. I had the best program there. They practically gave me everything I wanted. I had small classes. My largest class was 26 students. You go to LA, it's 40 if you're lucky. 40 if you're lucky. You know what I mean? Outrageous what's happening in our public system. I ended up quitting that job too. And this has always been the subject I've been drawn to. Now I got to start getting into it fully. I had strong opinions on issues and I wanted to be able to express them. I've been writing about stuff for a long time, always loved to write. And so into 2011, I began writing more letters. Jane Harmon retired in February of 2011, and immediately I wrote a letter about it to the Daily Breeze. They printed it. It was really something to see that, I had an extended knowledge of her background and who took her place. There was it's something a lot of people took for granted. Jane Harmon had some pretty profound influence in Washington. She was an intelligence wonk. She was pro-Israel, very important things I cared about. There were a lot of things I didn't like. And, this was like the first time that there was a competitive congressional race. And that really got me engaged. She retired in February. A special election was called for May. First time that the jungle primary occurred in the state of California following Prop 14's passage in 2008. So you had like a who's who of South Bay political figures and leaders running, including Craig Huey. Mike Jen, the mayor of Redondo Beach, ran. Kit Bobko, Mike Webb, who is the city attorney in Redondo. He's still there, by the way. And then you had Janice Hahn, the city councilwoman, run. And, you had like a who's who of South Bay politics now running for a congressional seat. This is really compelling stuff. And then I put my name in. I said I want him to win. It was at that point that I got in touch with the Beach Cities Republicans on a greater level. David Hadley was the president at that time. And so we went back and forth writing, essentially. I wanted to do what I could. I started writing pieces supporting Craig Huey. He lined up with all my values. I voted for him. My view was I wanted an outsider. That's just the way I operated. I didn't do anything much more besides writing and sharing my ideas. And I had a blog by then, and I was writing. I loved doing it. I loved sharing my ideas and getting them out there. And more people were reading what I was writing. That's just what I love to do. So writing, politics, history, putting it all together, I'm really getting into what I like to do. And you saw me here. I was writing away.
Is that what you were doing?
Yeah.
Were you blogging?
Yes. I was following up on stuff that happened. Getting initial ideas about what happened in Berkeley and stuff, and also following up on emails. So this has been, I was finally in my element with this. It was exciting to see a congressional race, open one. As far as I can remember, last time we had any kind of an open race was 92, 94, and I wasn't paying attention in those days, So this is where I was. So I was writing back and forth, and then I was like, I really like doing this. I want to be campaigning, helping candidates to win, stopping this corruption. And lo and behold, now 2011, we have a new redistricting that takes place. So now I get to be fully invested. My initial congressional seat, went up to Venice, and then there was a part that trailed out to Long Beach. And now the new congressional seat was Palos Verdes all the way up to Agoura Hills and Scooping in Malibu. Our district was deemed, we have the ribbon of shame, the Dockweiler Beach, that's connecting the South Bay to the west side. It's outrageous. This districting was supposed to ensure equitable redistricting, and it still failed in some ways. It got very politicized. Democrats were able to pack in and submit their ideas for this independent commission. Either Republicans and independents need to be more mindful about getting good people on the commission, or we might have to go to a process where judges do it. That's what happened in the 91 redistricting. So this is history. That's fascinating for me. I just really get it. It's just, I know this stuff, and it really, other things too, I just have to add, look, I'm just fascinated by it. I want to know, who were my congressional reps in the past? So I said, how did Jane Harman get elected? What was that like? Election 92, it was another battle royale. Another city councilwoman, it was Joan Flores, a Republican in LA City. She represented Watts. We had a Republican representing Watts at one time in the city council. She had an incredible pedigree. She was against government micromanaging. I mean, she had some environmental tinges that were acceptable. And she was a real leader and hitter, and she ran in the district that was carved out. Maureen Reagan, the daughter of Ronald Reagan, ran in this congressional seat. Reagan had left office by then. He ended up endorsing Reagan. We had other high-hitting Republicans, and that was a problem in the South Bay. You'd have a lot of Republicans competing, and a Democrat was able to cut right through. Jane Harman barely won, like 49 to 43, but it really set the tenor, and it was too bad, in my view, with how Harman kept going left and left, even though she tried to play a moderate card, because the district was still majority Republican at the time. But going even further back, I couldn't believe this. Bob Dornan represented Torrance. B1 Bob. He was not just an Orange County creature. He was here in the LA City. He was on the west side, and the district went from Tujunga. I was like, holy crap, we're connected to B1 Bob. That guy's a national figure, fiery, but he was a congressman here. A lot of people don't even know that. So that really got me jazzed, and, his views are very much aligned with mine. I respect his, some of his rhetoric's a little over the top, but, that kind of a fiery fight back conservatism to me is what we need, and it's very inspiring.
Why is that? That's what's so intriguing to me. Why?
Okay, we have seen Republicans playing a middle card for a long time. It's failed. The Democrats in this state have actually gone further left. The Bernie coalition that were burned, pun intended, burned by the DNC. They didn't give up here in the state of California. Bernie had a huge amount of support. I know Bernie supporters. Miguel Zuniga is an activist from Lomita. Can you imagine that? Lomita's a pretty easy. Dana Rohrabacher represented. Oh, that was the other thing too. Dana Rohrabacher once represented this area too. Can you imagine that? Anyway, so and the whole Bernie phalanx, they took over the central committees all over the state. It's gone further left. That's why Dianne Feinstein's having a hard time now. She goes to town halls and they boo her because it's the Bernie-crats have taken over. And I'm realizing, they're pushing distinctly destructive policies. And going to the middle of the road or trying to blend in with the blue has hurt us, because there are cultural issues that are deeply essential to any thriving community or state. And to keep caving is still giving Democrats a stronger edge. And when you've got a choice between Dem, Light, and Dem, people are just going to go with the Democrat. And the frustration that the Republicans face, that the base endures over and over again, is becoming more and more intolerable. And we've tried it the nice way. It's not working anymore. I can't remember the name of the author, but it was here in the state of California. I think it was on Foxes and Hounds. And the guy said, Republicans, be audacious. You might as well. We've got nothing to lose. We need to fight and not compromise. Because when it comes to politics, it's a zero-sum game. Somebody's going to win and somebody's going to lose. Jane Harman won, and this district lost from that point forward on a lot of issues. And we just can't have that anymore. It's that essential. What gets the Bernie-crats going is Bernie Sanders was hardcore in his views, and he didn't stop fighting for them. He was able to draw small donations from millions of ardent supporters, and he gained an incredible amount of money. And Republicans have to understand that process as well. If you really want to get people to vote, if you want to get people off their couch and getting out there, they need to see that you fight for them and are able to accomplish goals for them. Donald Trump's done that. His example and his model has also inspired a lot of Republicans in this state. And that's why it has to be that way. We want someone who will fight and make things happen. Caving and compromising has failed. It's failed in this state.
Well, I want to get right back to that, but I'm just curious, at what point, you said you've had this long fascination with politics, going back to when you were a kid. I mean, at what point did you realize, you're conservative and kind of how.
Oh, sure.
How'd that come about? Did you grow up here?
Yes, I was born in Torrance, born here at Little Company of Mary, actually. Dad, we were set up in Wilmington, then we moved into the Harbor Gateway, then back to Torrance. But I always say I was born here, raised here. I'm very special. You won't find a lot of Torrance natives like us.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's come from other parts of the country. San Pedro's special. Most people were born there. Right. It's very different. But I'm unique in that way. There's some of us. So, and it's becoming rarer because the property values are just skyrocketing in the city, as you can imagine. But I've been fortunate to be able to stay. When I knew I was a conservative, I guess it started with just what my mom and dad had raised me with. We were church-going, Bible-believing. What church? At this point, I'm not attending a church right now, but you can call me, if you need a title, evangelical Christian. Okay, yeah. Absolutely. Just as a side glance, I find a lot of churches don't preach God's word. They run away from it. Again, this liberalism, this compromising liberalism has been creeping in even to churches, and I can't tolerate it anymore. There's a lack of adherence to God's word. They talk about living a good life rather than recognizing Christ's good life and how it transforms us. So that's an issue. Joseph Prince, in a sense, is my pastor. He's in Singapore, and he has a broadcast every day, every Sunday. So I consider him my pastor, if you will. Anyway, so there was a fundamental sense to me about integrity and follow through. I mean, when I was supporting presidential candidates, I actually supported Perot in '92. Read my lips, no new taxes, and Bush caved on that. That really bothered me. That was very offensive to me. And someone like Perot, who was willing to fight for what's right and call out the spending and the excess, it's just a fundamental knowledge. You don't spend money you don't have. And you don't demand others to keep giving money to the government to spend for things that still aren't helping them. That resonated with me. I wasn't aware of his social issues or his cultural issues, which I don't agree with. I'm not for gay marriage. I'm not for baby killing. I'm pro-life. It's just, to me, it's a natural thing. It's a life. Defend it. It's not a matter of convenience for the mother. The life has to be protected as much as possible. For me, though, when my views really started to solidify with a academic grounding, it was 2006. I was teaching in Southgate at the time. I read an obituary in the LA Times. Okay, Milton Friedman died. Milton Friedman had passed away, and I read his views in the obituary, and I was fascinated. I said, I agree with him. I agree. And I started to read more of Milton Friedman. I also began to read more of Friedrich Hayek, these other free market, conservative economists, Austrian economists, and I was just fascinated, devouring this stuff. It totally resonated with me. I agreed with it, and that just really entrenched my conservative views. I started studying issues like healthcare, single payer, and even before that, when I was in college, I was reading Rush Limbaugh. At UC Irvine, I went to the stacks a lot. I really got a university education, but in the stacks, not necessarily in the classrooms. I read about these contentious issues, homosexuality, abortion, single-payer healthcare, socialism. Are these programs really as bad, or are these ideas as destructive as I think they are? And I found a lot of affirmative, objective evidence that affirmed conservative values. And it just really solidified and grounded me as a conservative. So I was ideological, willing to have the discussions, but becoming active, going to rallies, going to town halls, going to city councils to start fighting for this stuff, this became more recent as Obama and these overreaching anti-conservative, anti-constitutional policies were becoming reality. And here in California, it's even more unthinkable. All of these laws against basic First Amendment rights. Ricardo Lara has been one of my biggest targets. This guy wanted to pass a bill, 1146, to essentially shut down every Christian college, denying them the right to promote their moral, biblical values, and that they'd be forced to give them up because of discrimination. This is tyrannical. I can't believe we're having this. It's just anti-constitutional what's happening in this state. And rather than sitting by and being shocked, I decided to do something about it. I'm sorry if I'm skipping around. One of your jobs, you'll be able to piece it all together. Another thing that had inspired me, so for 2012, I got involved in elections. I was, hustling, trying to help Bloomfield, who was running for Congress. I was really excited. because the thought of Henry Waxman being my congressman was horrific, because he was one of the chief architects for Obamacare. Ugh. I set up my own, I had another blog, I called it Waxman Watch. It's still active, it's still alive on the internet, although I don't put anything because he's gone, thank God. But I started to pound him. I was thinking, how can I educate people to vote for Bloomfield instead of Waxman? So I wrote letters, I had my blog, people started to read it. I wasn't as social media savvy in those days. I didn't even have a Facebook account, I just had the blog. Now I have more of it, so it's easier to share everything. I actually, for the first time, I met Henry Waxman at it was the debate over there in Palos Verdes. They host one every cycle. They will host a debate for the congressional candidates, the state senate, etc. And there I saw Congressman Henry Waxman. I confronted him, and I said, you didn't know what was in your own bill. He admitted it on camera in an oversight committee. It was a energy committee hearing. He's the chairman of the energy committee. That's a big committee. He fought hard. He actually pushed aside a senior member who was supposed to get it. He actually had a vote for it and beat him, which is unprecedented, but he did it. And you'd find him a number of times admitting on camera, I don't know if this is in the bill. I'm like, are you kidding me? Henry Waxman also admitted, like 4 years prior, when he was going after steroid abuse in baseball, he didn't know what steroids were. He didn't know what the legal drinking age or it's in Bigger, Faster, Stronger in this documentary. Dr. Henry, I can't believe this, and nobody's jumped on him. So then I wrote about it like crazy. I started to share it with people. I confronted him, and I had the blog. I was starting to share it with people, and he actually saw it, and you could see the visible alarm on his face. Henry Waxman had never had a contentious fight ever, and now he was in the fight for his life, and it scared him. He knew who I was. He was at the Venice neighborhood council meeting. I saw him there. He then had a open forum at the Jewish Community Center in Redondo Beach. He called me out publicly and said, this is a Republican blogger who's writing nasty things about me. And Pastor Yossi Mintz shut me down and would not let me ask a question. It's a public forum. And I saw that, and then you see First Amendment rights under attack. I put the rabbi on full blast as well as the congressman, and people would write back. I was writing for the Patch at the time. They were much more open. And people were saying, that's terrible, I'm voting for Bloomfield. Starting to have an impact that you can really scare these people and make them, make them take notice and put them on full blast. That was really inspiring. So, unfortunately, Henry Waxman won, but it was the closest of his career. And then we started to go after him even more. Saul Alinsky, Rules for Radicals, a blogger named John Hawkins said, conservatives can follow these principles too. And we can actually win because we're the constructive alternative. We're about promoting principles, not just seeking power. So I started to do the same thing. I would hammer Henry Waxman on everything. I would hammer him on everything from the Syria issue. Are they going to have a military fight? I hammered him. Oh, and this was the best part. So 2013, we're about six months into the term, Henry Waxman had a town hall with the Torrance Democratic Club. It was open to the public. Same shit happens again. Conservatives, constituents in this district wanted to attend, and they were not allowed to attend because they didn't have a D on their registration. And I got the word of it, and more of it so first I saw the paper, open to the public. I called his office. Yes, it was open to the public. Oh my God, I had so much fun. I put it out there. Henry Waxman does town hall meetings. It just embarrassed him. That was probably one of the first articles that went viral. It really smeared him. And then I would write local letters to the press, hammering this guy. Obamacare is killing our medical industry. Doctors are going out. I personally saw a man in Manhattan Beach. This is a wealthy area. Walking down the street, I saw his van. It said, "I lost my." He actually went to the lengths of putting a paper on his van. I lost my doctor because of Obamacare. It was that frustrating for him that he was willing to make it public. And then I had said to him, you realize that Henry Waxman was the chief architect for that law. He says, I'm going to throw him out. And then I wrote a letter about it to the Beach Reporter. They published a lot of my letters in the past. I had gone after him on a lot of things, just having trying to have a press mill of my own to keep going after this guy. And then come January 30th, 2014, and he announced he was retiring. So it's like, we can really make a difference. We can drive these people out of office if we can't get them unelected. And that was really inspiring for me. And now I do the same thing to Ted Lieu, as you can see. Well, I'm going to give him hell, for all the crap he's doing. He's trying to turn into the anti-Trump on Twitter. So I just love being able to do this. I went to a town hall just after Henry Waxman was elected, 2013, in Hermosa Beach. And I showed up. I was just a freelance writer at the time, not getting paid for it. My editor had said, just go there as an observer. And I said, no, I'm going to ask questions because he's my congressman. I went after him. I learned, the psychological impacts you can have. Yes? I'll lower my voice. Oh, thank you. I will. No problem. No, that's fine.
You want something to drink? Yes. Would you like to? Sure. Okay. Thank you so much.
That's fine. So that registers the passion for it. Pete Kesterson, then there was David Hadley. Evan Chase became the next president of the Beach Cities Republicans. I was a member by then, and Evan Chase would introduce and say, this is Arthur. He's kind of crazy and really demanding.
What is, tell me what it's like, going to these meetings, and that description right there, I mean, like, you're going to poke at these people.
Yes.
I mean,
they deserve it.
Why? Like, explain that to me. Like,
why do I do this?
Why do you do it, and why in that manner?
Because it's effective and it's necessary. Where being nice doesn't work. It's about power, and it's about enforcing and putting pressure on elected officials. That's what gets them doing stuff.
So you don't mind being
provocative? You got to do it. And back to the town hall in 2013 in Hermosa Beach. The leading lights were there. Michael DiVirgilio was on the city council. So was Jeff Duclos, and they were guests there. And they knew who I was. When I showed up to sign it, they were going to try to make me press, and it's like, I don't have the authority to do that. So I'm a private citizen. So this has put a lot of these, I'm not like a corporate or an official press agent, so I have that double advantage. I'm a citizen. That's all I need. As soon as I showed up, the leader of the Beach Cities Democrats, someone pulled her aside and said, that's the guy who's been attacking Henry Waxman this whole time. She tried to make me sign, and I said, no, I don't. So that's when I began confrontation aspect, no, because they're trying to limit or silence or stop you. So when I showed up to the meeting, I was relatively polite. I didn't do the outburst then or anything. It was really inspiring, So you got Henry Waxman up there, and you could see he was visibly nervous that I was there. That's very powerful to me, that you're not going to get away with stuff anymore. You're not going to get a free pass. We're not going to be silent and let you get away with everything. It's about holding him accountable. And when he showed up, I raised...
Thank you so much. So, you want me to take those plates away?
Yeah, go ahead and take them for now. That's fine.
Okay.
I'll give you this one, too.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thanks. Thank you. No, you appreciate your telling me. So I'm
gonna go ahead and save this because I get nervous when it gets...
Oh, and then you lose everything.
When it gets over a certain number of minutes, I start eyeing it real hard. Let me...
You got to do it. It's a good idea for me to check as well. Yeah, so I had a great question. I said, I love throwing them off with liberal buzzwords. I'll say things like, I believe in climate change. I do. It's not just 4 seasons. I recognize that there are periods of intense warmth or growing warmth, but there's also periods of growing coolness. I bring a scientific mindset to it. I'm willing to have that discussion. I don't silence people, and that's the problem I have with the left. They want to silence people. I refuse to be silenced. That's part of the reason I'm provocative. You're trying to silence us, and I won't allow it. I believe in it. I just don't think it's a serious issue that requires government intervention. It will cool off again. These are patterns that extend over longer periods of time. They're growing grapes again in England. Why is that a bad thing? It happens. It just comes and goes. So there was that, and I said, what are you going to do for the veterans? Because one of the biggest points of contention against Waxman in the 2012 election, the Brentwood VA has gone practically unused for our veterans. We have the largest homeless veteran population in the country in LA County. And who's represented the Brentwood VA all these years? Henry Waxman. He did nothing about it. So this has been an easy point of contention for me. I hammered him about